So good morning, everyone. Welcome to yet another exciting episode of Marketing Demystified. I'm Harpreet. I head marketing for Kangaroo Group. I have over 20 years of experience in marketing, and I have worked with various organizations like IBM, HCL, American Express, and now I'm with Kangaroo. This initiative is primarily for the learning perspective. It is by the marketeers, for the marketeers, and of the marketeers, wherein we have experts from both academics and industry to talk about certain concepts of marketing purely from learning perspective. I have with me my co-host Vikesh. Vikesh, please kindly introduce yourself.
Thank you, Harpreet. Hi, I'm Vikesh Dhyani, co-founder and publisher at Oakbridge Publishing and Taxo Online. Previously, I have worked for about 24 years with some of the finest publishing and information solution companies like McGraw-Hill, Pearson, and LexisNexis, leading their sales and marketing teams across different roles.
Sure, thank you. Professor Sharma, can you please introduce yourself?
So I am Arun. So I'm currently associated with Nursi Monji at their Mumbai campus. So I take courses on behavioral science and marketing for MBA and PhD program there at NMIMS. So my PhD is also in behavioral science. So I'm really into behavioral science and I'm very passionate about it. Look forward to good discussion.
Sure, thank you so much. Suraj, request you to introduce.
Hi, I'm Suraj. I'm a marketing and sales professional with almost 15 to 18 years of experience now. And I've worked across industries, be it paints, liquor, e-commerce, handloom, and now I'm associated with Aditya Birla Fashion and Retail.
Sure, thank you so much. Welcome to both of you, and we will start the discussion. The topic for today's discussion is consumer behavior, behavioral sciences, and the impact on marketing. So I'll start with Professor Arun. So Professor Arun, it will be really great if you can enlighten us about what do we understand by consumer behavior and behavioral sciences and its impact on marketing. Overall, what is the concept when we talk about consumer behavior?
Good. Consumer behavior is an area like how humans behave. We are trying to understand this for, say, almost not 2,000 years. Aristotle, Plato, philosophers used to deliberate about how humans behave. But behavioral science as a domain of science has been established for last 100 odd years. So predominantly psychology was the branch of science which was studying consumer behavior. Recently, for past 2 decades, behavioral economists, neuroscientists are also trying to give their contribution to understand how humans behave. But if we have to divide the field, there are 2 main parts to it. One is how do we understand that how consumers make decisions, that what are the behavior implications of this. But if we say the sense it will make to marketing or any manager is how do we use this science, behavioral science that we say, to influence the behavior of consumers. Just understanding is not enough. So one part of the research is how do we try to understand where psychology, social psychology, cognitive neuroscience or neuroscience today is making a lot of insights about how humans make decisions or how consumers in particular make decisions. Then second part is how do we apply this into the context of, say, in the context of consumers, or say in general, the broader area is, say, how do we change the behavior of human beings? So which has a lot of, the behavioral science has a lot of applications in public policy, where also there are a lot of people, and consumer science or behavioral finance. So broadly, the 2 parts that we will consider, maybe over discussion, we will dive deep into it. One is how do we understand behavior? Second is how do we use these behavioral interventions to influence the behavior of consumers?
Right. Now, when you say that there is behavioral science, so there is neuroscience, and I was reading somewhere that now with AI coming into play, the more and more advanced methodologies which are going to be used in marketing, they will all be utilizing this, how we behave, the psychology of a human mind, or psychology, like you said, how will a human mind behave in a particular way when a particular stimulus is thrown to him. Suraj, you have something to elaborate on this?
Yeah, Harpreet. There I'll talk about the, like Prof spoke about the psychology and behavior. I'll talk about the underlying psychologies that drive, say, a particular behavior or adoption of a product. And I'll keep it restricted to 5 or 6 broad matrices. The first psychology which drives a lot of consumer behavior is fear. Okay, and all of us would have seen during COVID how fear drove adoption of categories that we never knew of, be it masks, be it health products, antiviral products. Our complete behavior changed. We started going, people who were not on digital adoption started adopting digitally. Zoom, for this Zoom call was not existent, or it was a very minimal penetration before COVID. Now, the fact that we are on Zoom shows how behavior has changed in the last 2 years, that we could do such a conference on Zoom. So fear is a very underlying emotion or a psychological emotion that drives behavior. The second biggest thing that drives this is reward. And all of us would have seen the great Indian Amazon festival. The reward is discount. Okay, but all of us behave in a certain way. We postpone our purchases to those 5 days or 6 days, and we want to purchase during those days. So that is another big driver of psychological driver to drive adoption or to drive behavior. Okay, the third one is I can put it as recommendation, but it is primarily social proof. Okay, if you see some people doing certain things or buying certain things, most likely as a consumer you would also adopt those things and take it forward. And one beautiful example here is recommendation by Netflix. Okay, why do you go and see something? Why do they use 86% of the people watched what you are wanting to watch? Or say reviews. So review for us, I also look after e-commerce in Aditya Birla Fashion Retail. So one of our biggest things that we need to execute is how do we get more and more reviews on the products that we sell. Okay, and what could be the marketing strategy to drive reviews? Because there is a behavior around it. Whenever you buy something, you will check out reviews. Okay, so that's one thing that is coming. That social proof is critically important. So broadly, fear, reward, social proof, and another tool which is very rightly used is scarcity. Okay, and scarcity is when we say limited edition sale, or scarcity is pre-booking. Because, and why do these big players do scarcity? Like MI6 is always listed on before it gets sold out, you should buy a MI phone. Okay?
Or even an Apple.
Or even an Apple. Yeah. So this is scarcity. Okay. So these are tools which Prof spoke about, which are behavioral, psychological mind states, if I may call it, which drive a certain behavior. And we as marketeers or we as sales professionals, we use these tools to get to the end result of what behavior we want. Okay.
Sure.
So that's what, yeah, I felt how critically important this behavioral science is in marketing.
Right. Thanks. So, see, I could hear words like you said fear, then you said social proof, then you said recommendation, then you said reviews. Reviews is also kind of a social proof only. So going back to Professor Sharma, see, there was Maslow's need hierarchy theory, right? When we began with all this, which is your psychological needs, which is your food, water, warmth, rest, safety needs, which is your security, safety. Then there is belongingness and love needs, and then there is esteem need, and then there is self-actualization need. Now, this was where we started with, like you said, that human behavior has been studied or has been a subject of discussion or a study for more than 2000 years. Now, some of the concepts which Suraj was talking about, which we still find they hold true, because human as a person or human as a species hasn't evolved in terms of these needs, these underlying needs. So do you see that evolution, or have you now what are being taught in schools or in colleges? Do you see that there has been an evolution from what was then and what it is now?
Correct. Now, see, like you talked about Maslow's era. Maslow gave this theory in 1943. Now, so the major change that happened in consumer psychology is when Herbert Simon created this concept of bounded rationality. From there, this field completely changed. He won Nobel Prize for his contribution to psychology. Then his work was picked up by Daniel Kahneman. Daniel Kahneman is a pure psychologist. His work is so influential that he ended up winning a Nobel Prize in economics. He has no formal training in economics. Then 3 decades back, there was no field called behavioral economics or behavioral finance. Consumer behavior has the work of Daniel Kahneman and Tversky has huge implications for, say, how we think about decision making of consumers or human beings in general. The big shift that has happened or how the field has evolved, say before this Daniel Kahneman and all the psychologists were focusing on the first part of, say, decision making, that what are the motivations of human beings, how do they perceive things around. But the major contribution of Daniel Kahneman and then ultimately Richard Thaler converted this entire knowledge into something actionable, which is a very influential book he wrote in 2009 called Nudge. So he won Nobel Prize in 2017. The major contribution of Daniel Kahneman, Richard Thaler, and these modern psychologists is they give you now actionable solutions, like the social proof and scarcity. What Suraj talked about. This was developed by Robert Cialdini in 1984. He wrote this book called Influence, the scarcity, social proof, and there are 6, 7 or more. So there are hundreds of such principles which has been discovered over last 30, 40 years, which are actionable. Now, social proof as a principle this is the basic psychology is we get influenced by what other people are doing. Now, how it is getting translated into business, like what TripAdvisor is doing. The underlying psychology is that we get influenced by what other people. TripAdvisor is showing you on their chat, like if you're looking for a place in Goa, they are telling you what other people are talking about it. So the underlying psychology is developed in 80s and 90s. Now we are seeing like other effect, which has a lot of application, is decoy effect. Like a lot of companies use decoy so that you buy a certain option. So this was developed in 1982. So after Daniel Kahneman's work, he created an alternative solution to the current methods, the old methods of psychology, where the nudge as a concept is, how do you nudge consumers or influence their behavior to change their behavior? So we will see some of maybe in the second module, we'll talk about what are the tools, how do we apply these tools in the real world. After this nudge book was published, all the governments across the world, immediately Barack Obama created a nudge unit in US government. They have similar units in behavioral insight units for most of the European governments. The work is so influential that it has an actionable tools are provided in the hand of managers or the government officials to influence the behavior of, say, the public utility goods or the consumers, or whether the stock picker. Like recently, National Stock Exchange has tied up with IIM Ahmedabad. They have set up a behavioral insight unit, similar kind of insight unit, to understand what kind of interventions we should use to, say, change the behavior of stock pickers or to understand the behavior of in general. So the main contribution, if you summarize, is not only how do you understand what kind of tools that is given by, especially in the last 2 to 3 decades, that how we can apply this in the real world too. And there is tons of evidence which suggests that it actually works. And most of the consultancy firms like BCG, KPMG have set up a separate units only to apply behavioral insights to influence the behavior of consumers, in addition to traditional marketing research methods where we collect data like this. So this is how the field has evolved for last, say, 30, 40 years.
And Harpreet, just adding on to what Professor said, I mean, one of the biggest behavioral or psychological mindset that we have is what other people think about us, okay? And that drives a lot of behavior, and that is a very, very deep subject. Companies are built on these thoughts. Take for example, Facebook, okay? It was built on this premise of what other people think of us. How many likes how many likes do I get, or how do I look? It's the same underlying principle that Instagram also uses, which is primarily of how fashionable you look, or the reels. Now, Reels is a big business model with YouTube. YouTube is churning out a complete business models on Reels, on how do we integrate monetary, how do I monetize Reels is one of the biggest things that's going to happen. So here also, if you see each and every touch point that we come across, right from a Instagram reel or a YouTube shorts or a Facebook, or so everywhere, all of these things, the day-to-day usage things are built on deep psychological thoughts which drive that behavior. Okay.
Right.
So I would agree to what Prof said, because it is everything is built on your psychological mind state, which drives your behavior and which marketers use to drive adoption of their products. Okay, so that's how I would summarize this discussion.
Anything you would like to add? So like he was saying that BCG has set up a separate behavioral science unit. I know because I have worked extensively with MasterCard. So MasterCard also has something like this, where they look into the transaction history. They look into the propensity of using a particular card. They look into the propensity, whether this particular person will how that person is going to behave for a particular category of the product. How is his travel behavior going to be? They do a lot of analysis. It not only on the transactions which are being done, because there is one payment data which they have, but they also have tie-up with the I think it's Ipsos as an agency, with whom they extract millions and millions of behavioral data. Do you, with the experience, like you said, you have worked with paint industry and then liquor and then retail, and right now you are with Aditya Birla Group. In any of these trends, have you come across a separate unit being given, that kind of importance being given to consumer behavior, understanding of that, and applying that to marketing?
Yes. So I would split this answer into two parts. One is, say, 10 years back. Okay, so when I was in, say, paints, or when I was with liquor, so what kind of information that time we had? We had very limited information that time. We, at best, you will have a phone number or a name of a person, and you know where he buys. And your CRM strategy that time used to be, if there is offers, then send an SMS out or say ki this is an offer which is going out and come and buy us. Okay. Now, as the time has progressed, with the evolve, if I call the big e-commerce giants, or even with the rise of, say, a Google or a Facebook, as time has progressed, we have more footprints of consumers who are buying our products. Okay. Now, if I were to, now the second part, if I were to draw a correlation with the current existing kind of data that we have, we not only have data about their phone number or their names, we have data about what are their preferences, what are they buying, what allied products are they buying, what colors do they like. Okay, basis that, what kind of credit card spends do they have. Now, given there is a footprint which a particular consumer goes across the various social media channels, or various apps, or even the way they buy from us, we have a lot richer data. In fact, now the CRM is about a customer lifecycle journey. It's not about we have a date, we have a promotion, we have a SMS, we have a phone number, and send a SMS on this number. To give you an example, we bucket our consumers into active users, into churned users, into certain users who have certain preferences of, say, a particular category. Like this customer comes to me only for shirts, so then can I try and sell him a trouser? This customer comes to me once during occasions, so whenever there's a Diwali or something happening, can I send him or can I connect with him? A Y customer comes to me only during birthdays, so can I figure out a set that I give something on a birthday so that he changes his behavior and comes to me for every birthday? So as times have progressed, and as we get richer and richer in data, our analytical ability to slice the data is becoming stronger, and thus our ability to drive a behavior as per we want is becoming stronger. Okay, so that is how I would say how the world has moved in the last 10 years.
So it's basically, it's basically, you have the data, you understand the behavior, and then you utilize it to your benefit. So that is
Yes.
like a reactive approach. And basis
Yes.
this reactive approach, because you have so much vast knowledge of the behavior of the consumer, then you apply it more proactively also. That,
Yes.
if this is what my consumer is going to like. So like what e-commerce does, right? If I am buying a particular kind of book, it will throw me options which are
Absolutely.
which
Absolutely.
have a more propensity to click with me.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, Ipsos as an agency, now we have agencies who drive this. So we have agencies who drive this understanding of consumers. And right now, if you were to ask me, I mean, Prof will help me. There was a concept of segmentation. How do you segment people? So now, if you ask me, where we are moving is we are moving to a segment of one. Okay. For example, Harpreet is a segment for me. I know what Harpreet is going to do, or what kind of interactions Harpreet has done with my brand. Okay. When does she buy? What does she buy? Does she buy white? Does she buy blue? Does she come to our, say, if I were to take an example, does she come to Indranagar store in for me, or does she go to my website? Okay. Or does she dial in a video shopping with our store? So I know all the information. So Harpreet is a segment of one. So my backend agency has to run analytics for Harpreet and try and convert Harpreet and see in on a 365 day how is Harpreet behaving. Okay. So that is how deep and analytical we are going to become as and when we get more and more information from their behavior, and then how do we drive a behavior. Okay.
Sure. So going to Professor Sharma again. So like we have seen that this is how it is, some of the examples which Suraj gave, that this is how the application is happening. How are Indian schools incorporating this behavioral science knowledge in the curriculum? Because there are budding marketeers who are studying, who are going to be the future marketeers. How are Indian schools incorporating this in the curriculum?
So this is a challenge. Now, see, if you see top universities, you see Harvard, Wharton, they have built behavioral labs or neuroscience labs where they conduct the study. So Wharton is, say, one of the leading, say, in the area. They have built a customer analytics units, neuroscience lab, and say, first, it's very costly to build neuroscience and behavior science. But in India also, IIM Ahmedabad, like I told you, has set up, say, along with National Stock Exchange, they have set up a behavioral science. They conducted 2 conferences. So IIM Ahmedabad has picked up very nicely. Ashoka University has recently set up a behavioral science unit. Now at NMIMS, I have introduced a course called Behavioral Science and Marketing, where we studied. So this course is like, it's a huge demand for these kind of courses. So we have conducted a lot of workshops on neuromarketing, how neuroscience can be used to understand. So we are picking up. So at least the tier 1 B schools in India have realized its potential, and all the top B schools have at least introduced courses on behavioral science, neuroscience, and how do we understand of marketing. But it's a challenge if you go to tier 2 and the tier 3 B schools, they are still teaching consumer behavior the way we used to study, let's say 50 years back. It's a challenge. It's a recent area. First, professors also need to be, say, training. They have to really learn that what is the knowledge of last 10 years. So, but it is picking up. So maybe in next 10, 15 years, we will see behavioral science and neuromarketing or consumer neuroscience are very much part of, say, it's not only Indian B schools, even industries like, say, AC Nielsen has very recently built, say, the neuroscience unit or behavioral science unit. This is happening only in the last decade. So this transition is going to take time. Maybe over a decade's time, you will find it's a very core part of the curriculum across the B schools all over the world.
Right. And like you said that you have introduced this. So can you break the course into like what are the different components which you cover in this? Because I'm sure audience would be keen on knowing, since this is something which is upcoming and this is something of so much of interest. And I'm sure down the line, AI and machine learning and robotics, everything is going to be, I was reading an article somewhere that they are going to have mind reading. If I'm thinking about something, that particular ad will start showing. If I am in a particular area and I'm thinking that, I need to go and eat Chinese, so maybe it will start showing me, my phone will start showing me options where I could have good Chinese in the vicinity. So it will be very interesting to know what are the different components which are there in this curriculum.
So it's a 30-hour course. Actually, 30 hours is too less to cover the entire behavioral science of last 4 decades. But breakdown of this course is the first half of the course, we talk about, see, when we say, how do we understand human behavior? There are three brain sciences which are predominantly very important to understand. So we talk about the recent best quality research that has happened in cognitive psychology, like that at an individual level, how people behave. Second is like what Suraj also talked about is the social psychology, that social proof, scarcity, how the behavior of, or when people are around us, when what other people are doing, how do we behave in the social setting? So the second part of the research is social psychology, where we say what Robert Cialdini has written a very good book called Influence, where the social proof, scarcity, all these 7-8 principles he has developed of how social psychology. And third part is how neuroscience and understanding of neuroscience. So this is around the first part. We try to understand the core knowledge, how humans or consumers make decisions. Second half of the course is where we try to apply this in the context of, in the marketing context. Like, so one of the, let's say, students have done a fantastic job. Like, say, so their group assignment is they have to approach different companies around. So they easily get access to small retail stores or say restaurants. Bigger companies don't give them access. So they run experiments using all the knowledge. Like, say, there was a bakery in Ville Parle. It was a startup. They said, we want to increase your sales. And then they applied all these nudge intervention and behavioral intervention for 3 weeks. And they actually saw there was a 20% increase in certain SKU. So we apply this knowledge, and so I'm taking this course for last 4-5 years, and we have good body of research. And see, I personally do research in this area. So for one of my research, so there is a concept in psychology called choice overload. If there are too many choices, we end up getting confused. But we can't recommend brands to actually reduce. If you can't tell Asian Paints to reduce the number of paints, you can't tell Samsung. So I worked on a project with my PhD students on, can we reduce the impact of choice overload without actually reducing the number of options? So to conduct this study, so we approached 2 bars that they are there in Mumbai. So we ran an experiment live with the consumers, and we wanted to see, so we created, so like what in the nudge Richard Thaler talks about, if you create a choice architecture means the way you present choices to the consumers, it has significant influence over their decision making. So you not necessarily reduce the number of options, but the creation of choice architecture which help. So this paper is under review. So this is how we are running this course. Like, we first sensitize students to what are the different knowledge of what social science, social psychology, neuroscience is talking about behavior. Then we try to build examples, or then we study different examples, what BCG has done, what say nudge units in US government has done. So we expose them to different case studies. And then we try to build our own case studies in the local market and try to do for smaller companies how we can influence the behavior of consumers.
And
Wonderful.
I think a very important point that Prof made about choice. So that the basic and I'll give a real life example. And the basic underlying emotion that he's speaking about is when you give a lot of choice, your simplification, or you end up confusing a consumer, because he doesn't understand what to buy, and there is a very high risk that he will go off. And we have faced this in real life interventions. So what we do now as a conscious intervention is, whenever our sale period is going on, okay, or initially we used to keep category level offers. Now we are not keeping category level offers. We are keeping very simple store level offers. For example, you buy for certain X and you get something else. Previously, it was buy one shirt, get something, buy one trouser, get something. Similarly, in my other industries also. So the simplification of, say, you have 3 offer slabs, and a consumer walks in and decides, okay, I will now decide what bundle I need to buy to hit this slab. So that itself drives a lot of conversion. Okay. Instead of cluttering the space, saying ki, this section is for this, that section is for that. So choice is a very, very important real life tool to drive a certain behavior that you want to drive.
Right.
And consumer choice is very close to my heart. My PhD is in consumer choice. It's a very topic which is so close to my heart.
Sure, interesting. And also you were talking about that there are certain nudges, the nudge interventions which you teach the students. Can you give examples of some of the nudges, some of these interventions which you teach the students before they conducted, for example, the experiment you said in bakery in Villeparle? What are some of those nudge interventions which they learn in this course?
So there are, say, full body of research. There are so many of intervention. Now, if you have to discuss examples, like what, say, Suraj mentioned, like social proof is a nudge intervention which is very popularly used. Say social proof as in you show, suppose there is a bakery, there is a pastry. So how do you use social proof as an intervention? Even if you mention that 84% of the people who bought this bakery, so this item, also bought, say, chips along with this, or just the social proof as a nudge means you just provide information about what other people are doing. Let's say
So just a fact.
So this is information about what other people are doing. Or so there are, say, so now nudge intervention is, so what Daniel Kahneman did, they identified, so we call this in psychology as heuristics or biases. Heuristics mean we use mental shortcuts to make decision. Like social proof is a heuristic that we use a shortcut, so we just see what others are doing and we make those decisions. He has identified a list of heuristics like anchoring, loss aversion, your social proof, scarcity, status quo bias. So there are hundreds of those interventions which we can pick. So now what we do in the first half, we tell them what is loss aversion, like what is choice overload, what is this, then how do you apply social proof in the life setting? How do you say apply, say, scarcity? In the scarcity means if there is anything scarce in the market, that suppose you say only 20 items are left or 5 items are left, or like say flash sales, for example, that this Amazon Prime sale is only for 2 days. Like what Arrow says, that there are special 2 days sales only for the Prime members, and this offer is valid only for the 2 days. Now this is scarcity. You are making this offer only now. There is no point now. Arrow can actually say it is there for the entire season. For Shopper Stop, Arrow says we will keep the sale only for 2 days for the Prime members, then we'll open it up for others. This 2-day window creates a scarcity which actually motivates. So these are the nudge interventions which you can employ, and there are hundreds of those nudge interventions which you can. But the broader question is, there are not ready-made solutions available. So this is a core knowledge. Like say, loss aversion is a core knowledge. Status quo bias is a core knowledge. You can't simply apply in paint industry. So the consultancy firms like BCG or say, so when we will talk about say tools and techniques, I'll tell you about this case about Savillon. So they work with ITC, very recent in the last 2-3 years, how they created a separate product. So I think I forgot the name of this consultancy firm. I think it was BCG or some other company. So they created a very good nudge intervention, which was very successful. So maybe I think in the second half, we will when we'll talk about, so I'll discuss about this case, how this has happened.
Sure, thank you so much. And we will look at, so we basically discussed about consumer behavior as a general concept. We looked at how it has evolved, and we also looked at what Indian schools are doing to lap on this interesting trend which has evolved in the past decade, and it is further evolving. In the second module, we will look at more practical examples and certain tools and techniques, how Indian companies are bracing themselves for this change and how they are practicing this interesting science. Thank you so much, and stay tuned for the second part.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching part 1. In this episode, we discussed consumer behavior's impact on marketing. We looked at what do we understand by consumer behavior, what is the impact on marketing, psychology of human mind and how it behaves in a particular way, examples around use of different factors which drive adoption, such as fear, reward, social proof, scarcity, decoy effect, what people think of us, and which out of these factors can be made into actionables. Evolution of human needs from Maslow times to current times, consumer behavior as a stream in leading B schools as well as its role in corporate decisions, advent of neuroscience or behavioral science, and how and why it is going to become a core of curriculum in times to come. We also did discussion around choice overload, choice architecture, nudge intervention to drive product adoption. In case you like this part, please do like, share, and comment. And stay tuned on Marketing Demystified. We will soon be sharing part 2 of this episode, in which we will look at practical examples of application of consumer behavior in different aspects of marketing.